date in the whole of Europe. They reckon that many of the British were still putting on woad. There was a very young king on the throne of Catalonia and Aragon at that time. King Alfonso III, just 21 years of age. But he was sick and tired of attacks on his fleets of ships plying the Mediterranean, and also on his little port towns of Sitges, Salou, Tarragona, Barcelona, by pirates, many of whom lived in caves around this island and were under the protection of the Arabs. So he decided to put together a fleet of ships and set sail here once and for all, get rid of them. In the December of 1286, 47 ships left those little port towns with thousands of men. What a stupid time to set sail. Because coming through the straits between Menorca and Mallorca, just 22 miles apart at the narrowest point, a bit like the Straits of Dover, one of the infamous Tramontana storms, that northern wind that blows up during the winter time, overtook that particular fleet, and only 22 of his ships managed to survive to call out in the harbour of Mahon, where they landed on a little island, which from that day has always been called Isla del Rey. Well, to cut a long story short, after a very bloody battle, Alfonso managed to take the island for the very first time for any part of Spain, Catalonia and Aragon, on the 17th of January 1287. He gave the opportunity of the Arabs to actually integrate into a new Christian community. Christianity had been abolished by the Arabs. Only a few wished to. The rest he put onto boats over a period of time and sent off to North Africa for safekeeping. But we do know that many of those captains loaded those ships up, took their money and then dumped them overboard in the middle of the Mediterranean. Alfonso, as I say, brought back Christianity and laid the foundation stone of the Cathedral of Santa Maria in Ceutadella. He also gave that name to the city, Ceutadella Menorca. To differentiate it between Ciudad de Palma across the border in Mallorca, he named it the little city of Menorca. The E-double-L-A on the end of any Menorquian word is a diminutive, it means small or little. We shorten it back to just Ceutadella, but its official name is still Ceutadella de Menorca, the little city of Menorca. If you can't manage Ceutadella, just pronounce it like so many people do, Cuddly Dudley. Between the 6 knights who had brought their armies into battle, the island being up for grabs, it was split equally. Those 6 noble families, who have ruled this island now with a rod of iron for some 700 more years, have their palaces down here in Ceutadella, and all the land of the island basically still belongs to those 6 noble families. Most of the farmers being tenant farmers with very long leases which they can hand down from father to son. Those people have, well, the local population have got so much to thank them for. After those 40 days or so, he went on his way, never to see Menorca again. But as we all know, looking back to our school history, trying to drag it out of our brains, by 1492, all those kingdoms of Spain had become one under the very first of the Christian kings and queens, Queen Isabella of Castile and King Ferdinand of Aragon. In fact, of course, their daughter, Catalina de Aragon, became Henry VIII's first wife, Catherine of Aragon, as we call her. So, by 1535, when an attack took place which started to turn the course of the history of Menorca, this island was part of the Kingdom of Spain as we now know it. In 1535, 2 very, I've got to say, infamous men, 2 brothers, both admirals in the Turkish Empire Navy, staged an attack on the little port town of Mahon. Some 100 ships and some 2,500 men entered the harbour, flying the Turkish flag. But these 2 brothers were also infamous Barbary coast pirates. notorious, ferocious, and as the older brother, Kaya al-Din, had red hair or red beard, he was called Barbarossa, red-bearded pirate, by the British. The townspeople started to prepare a feast of welcome for him and those men, but realizing who they were, when they landed on a little beach underneath the cliffs and tore down the Turkish flag and raised the skull and crossbones, they raced back to within their walls, sent out messengers, realizing they were outnumbered many times over, and they came to an agreement with Barbarossa that if they opened their gates and allowed those pirates in, they could take all their worldly possessions, their livestock, their food, their treasures, providing they themselves were safe from any harm. But unfortunately, when they did open the gates, having come to that agreement, Barbarossa and his men went on the rampage. Of the 1,300 inhabitants of Mahon at that time, some 850 were taken as slaves, never to be seen again. Some 350 were killed trying to defend their families from being taken from them and their wives from being raped, and a few that were left just disappeared into the countryside.